Hello there, everyone. Dr. Tharp here. And as I always say, I am here tonight on my usual mission to help everyone who is struggling with type 2 diabetes do that successfully. Now, bear with me because I'm actually on several lives right now. So I'm just setting up one last live, and that would give everyone time to trickle in. Um, because of course I don't want anybody to miss out tonight on what I have to say. And tonight is pretty much going to be dedicated to, can you reverse type 2 diabetes naturally? Yes, you can. And do you have to be on medications to do that? No, you can't. You can naturally do it. You can avoid medications. And for those of you who know what you're doing, you can successfully decrease medications. Um, so, reversing type 2 diabetes is definitely possible. And for those of you who don't know who I am an internal medicine doctor. I practice in both the hospital setting as well as um, as well as in my own practice, and my practice is solely dedicated to helping people successfully reverse type 2 diabetes naturally. um, and the reason I do that is because I started out my career in hospital medicine where I saw end stage diabetes. I saw the worst complications and I saw how preventable it is. And because type 2 diabetes is so preventable, I decided I had to do something about it. And so that's what brings me here tonight. I want to empower those of you who feel like you've tried everything. I want to make you know, make you understand, and make you feel confident that it is possible. So I know you've probably tried to talk to your primary care doctor about coming off of medications or avoid being on medications. For some of you who found out you were getting a prescription for metformin, you were petrified, right? But the problem is you didn't know what else to do, because when you try to have that discussion with your doctor does not have the time to help you naturally reverse it. So they say just take the medications, and they give you some very generic recommendations, right? They tell you, okay, here's a sheet of paper. It's going to tell you what you eat. It's going to tell you eat a DASH diet, eat a low carb diet, eat a Mediterranean diet. And they're going to say, and then do some exercise every day. But when you walk out with that information, what do you really do with that? What does it mean? How do you do that day to day? How do you put that into practice? How do you know it's working? And that is where so many people lose hope. And so many people become convinced that type 2 diabetes is really, it's a sentence and that you have to live with it. And some people are convinced it's just age and it was my destiny, it was meant to be. And some people settle with it runs in the family. So that must be it. It's genetics. I can't do anything about it. And the reality is, type 2 diabetes, you can absolutely do something about it. I see it done every single day with the people that I work with. We successfully do it. I work with very determined women who are achieved in their own right in so many other aspects of their life. And they come in so frustrated because this is just the one area that they couldn't beat. And when we finally go through the motions, we work together, we're determined, we do make it happen. And on my other lives, I have shared with you the results of some of these women and how fast it happens when we follow the right formula, and when we're finally doing what's right for their body. So, absolutely, it's possible to naturally reverse it. It's possible to avoid medications altogether if you act early. And it's possible to come down on medications, if not completely eliminate medications. Again, if you act early, if you act aggressively, it is possible. Um, Now, one of the things and I'm going to sound like a broken record because to be honest, there's just no other way to do it. The formula that I have put together, it's kind of like decoding, right? I've decoded, I've kind of broken the mystery around how you do it naturally. And so it's really comes down to a system. So for those of you who, and I know many of you have tried the teas, you have tried the supplements, you have tried the intermittent fasting, you have tried the walks after every meal, which I do encourage. But if you're not working with the system, then it's going to be very frustrating. It's going to continue to be frustrating because it really does boil down to a very systematic approach. You have to be doing several things at once, and and so that is where so many people get into trouble because you're on the internet, you're looking for a way, and one will say do this, somebody else will say don't do this, do that, and it's very conflicting, and you try to pull from that information whatever you can to help yourself. And unfortunately, you might do one thing right, but the other things you're not doing, or you're doing it the wrong way. And so that is where the system comes in and having the right guidance. um, the system that I talk about is not something necessarily that can be even discussed here, right? I can definitely give you an idea, which I will shortly give you an idea of what you should be doing and some changes that you can make. But the reality is, successfully reversing type 2 diabetes naturally really does boil down to working over time, understanding what your body needs, understanding how patterns work, and how are your blood sugars running, and when do they run high, and why do they run high, and what are you eating. It really comes down to an individualized approach, really understanding what you are doing on a day-to-day basis, and then how do we make changes. And when I talk about making changes, one of the things that I wanted to do with with the system is I wanted to make it comfortable, because reversing type 2 diabetes should not feel like torture. It should not feel like you can't do it forever. You should not feel low energy as you're doing it. And unfortunately, a lot of the tactics out there, a lot of the fads and the gimmicks lead to a lot of weakness. It leads to low energy. And so you start to feel, like, okay, I'm I'm maybe reversing type 2 diabetes, but I still don't feel well, right? And the reality is, if you're reversing type 2 diabetes, you should be feeling well. You should be feeling the energy. You should be feeling your body coming back. You should be feeling the aches and pains going away. You should be feeling nourished and strong. So that is basically the system that I have made sure to do, and to ensure that you're feeling well on the journey, and you're not just feeling like this is another crash diet that is maybe going to go for a week or two and then you can't keep it up. That is where it's counterproductive. And a lot of you have already been through these phases. You do something and it's just not sustainable. Your numbers might have come down from doing it. Your A1C came down, your blood sugars maybe came down, but you just couldn't keep it up. And quite frankly, you were miserable. And how do I know that? Well, not just as a doctor, but as someone who has successfully reversed my own insulin resistance, as someone who has been through the motions, as a physician, a very stressful job. I was working in the hospital at the time. I was 30 pounds overweight, and I too got the warning from my primary care doctor about starting medications. And that was my wake up call, because as a doctor who works in the hospital, I knew what that meant. I knew that meant the path I was on was one of being on medications, of being, sick all the time, of having to go to the doctor. So, 1 second, let me just make sure my charger is connected here. Give me 1 second. Let me just get my charger connected. 1 second. All right. All right. Sorry about that. The computer is gonna die. But I've been there. It's the path that I was on was, one to medications, one to chronic disease, and I decided to take action to figure out what was sustainable. And I figured out what was sustainable for me, and now I share it with so many other people. I empower so many other women, and once they leave the process, they're confident about what their future looks like. They're no longer feeling anxious about the prospect of strokes or kidney disease or neuropathy. They're no longer worried about those things happening, but rather focused on the things that they've always wanted to do. Their outlook on life is so much better because they're not worried about just surviving. You know, they're not anxious about being on more and more medications. And quite honestly, being on more and more medications, but still feeling bad, being on more and more medications, but still feeling as if you're not getting any better, and then you get the news from your doctor that you need to be on another medicine, and then another, because the reality is being on medications is like a band-aid, right? It's if you're not getting to the root cause and you don't know how to get to the root cause, that is where you end up on more and more medications. So let's jump into the action, right? The most important part of reversing type 2 diabetes is the action. So if you walk away tonight with one message, with one thing, I hope that it is you feel motivated. You know it's possible. And now you feel motivated to take action. And now you know you're not alone on the journey. You know that there's doctors like me out there that, I'm not just telling you take medication and give in to the disease, but I'm telling you, you can empower yourself to reverse the diabetes naturally. So it's all about action. Now, I always talk about what your plate should look like. And I think that message will never change, right? The reversing type 2 diabetes always starts with nutrition, first and foremost. And the easiest way for me to explain what your nutrition is to look like is to talk about what your plate should look like. Before I jump into what your plate should look like, though, let's talk about how many meals for the day you're eating. So, this is one area that many people get into trouble. So, intermittent fasting is something that it's out there, right? There's a big craze on intermittent fasting. And so, many women, especially the women who work with me, many of them, when they come to me, they are intermittent fasting. They're not having their first meal till 12 o'clock, and then they don't eat for the rest of the day. And the reality is that is not the right way to do it. So there is room for fasting. Fasting does play a role. There's no doubt about it. But doing fasting the wrong way gets you into more trouble and makes you feel worse, makes you feel more low energy, just makes you feel miserable, right? So, intermittent fasting is something that you have to understand how to do it in order to do it successfully. Now, what I do suggest is you fast through the night and not through the day. Fasting through the day deprives your body of valuable nutrition. You're not getting what your body needs. So, my first point, and I want you to write this down, I want you to implement it starting tonight, starting today, starting tomorrow morning, You must eat a breakfast, you must eat a lunch, and you must eat a dinner. Okay. It does it. I know you're petrified about your blood sugar spiking. And of course, your blood sugars are spiking because of what you're eating. That's a huge part of it. But you must nourish your body. Okay. That's what our bodies need in order to be efficient, in order to carry out our functions at work, at home, in order to feel energized, in order to avoid, depression. And so we should feel good. And if we're not feeling good, that's when we just, we feel horrible overall. We have our mindset is bad. So it's really important to make sure you are eating at least 3 meals a day. Now, let's talk about what your plate should look like. The first thing that I see, the first big problem that I see is lack of protein deficiency. Many people out there, and I work with a lot of women, we're not getting our protein. Okay. And so you must aim to have protein on your plate. As a matter of fact, the first thing you should be thinking about is, what is my protein, when you're building the plate. And so if you are not eating your protein, for example, if you're having avocado toast in the mornings, for example, you're having the avocado, you're having the toast, but where's your protein? So this is where you need to be asking yourself, am I getting my protein? Where is my protein? For those of you who might not know what good protein sources are, an excellent protein source, of course, are your animal sources. So your chicken, your beef, your egg, your shrimp, your fish, turkey, pork. Those are all good sources of protein. Okay. Tuna, salmon. So those are your protein sources. So for every meal, starting with breakfast, you should be thinking, what is my protein here? And one thing I want to debunk is that your protein does not have to be eggs in the morning. It can be anything you want. So that is another issue. Some people feel very limited because we are of this mindset that it must be eggs or nothing else. And the reality is, you can have anything you want, any protein source that you want for breakfast. Okay, so when you're building your plate, starting with breakfast, an early breakfast, okay, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever time you have to eat before you head out to work, make sure you're getting a protein in, a good protein source. Now, the next thing is, now we can think about what our sides are going to be. And there's two other things that you need. Well, three other things you need on your plate. The first are your carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, yes, you've heard, oh, I shouldn't be having carbohydrates, right? That's what you've been told. And carbohydrates, it is important to limit your carbohydrates. And one of the best ways to do that is to look at the quality of the carbohydrates you're eating. So if you are consuming carbohydrates that are white bread, if you are having bagels in the morning, even if it's a wheat bagel, or you're having a slice of wheat bread, that is a poor carb source. Okay. And so I would start by assessing what the quality of your carbohydrate is. Your carbohydrate should be complex, it should have lots of fiber in there. So, for example, a preference for me, and everybody is different, but for me, I love my sweet potatoes in the morning. I have sweet potato with my protein source in the morning. So sweet potato is one for me. For others, it could be a slice of Ezekiel bread. And Ezekiel bread, yes, it is a bread, but it is a healthier option compared to the wheat bread and compared to, of course, to white bread. So if you are eating white bread in the morning, white bagel, wheat bread, wheat bagel, don't that's an opportunity to cut those off and to go for complex carbohydrates as natural as possible. So for example, again, sweet potato, your vegetable sources, so squash, Yes, you can have squash in the morning. So you're looking for a natural carbohydrate source that's going to have fiber in there. Okay. I say Ezekiel bread is one option because it's high in fiber. It actually has more protein content than the average bread as well. So that is a healthier option. But the best option for carbohydrates is to go as natural as possible. So you are going for a natural carbohydrate with fiber in there. Um, and then you have to think about what your fat is. So, again, if you have been told, and this has been probably your perception for a while, or you've been told, don't eat fat. And again, that's another huge misconception, that many people, of course, become afraid of fat, right? And I always say one of the things I tell the women that I work with is don't fear fat. Now, am I saying that you should have deep fried hash browns for breakfast, or it's okay to have bacon, for breakfast, or it's not? Because now, again, you're assessing the quality of your fats. And here we only talk about good fats. So, good fats, there's a limited category, it's a limited category. So you're definitely not cooking with butter. You're not cooking with vegetable oil. You shouldn't be cooking with vegetable oil. You shouldn't be cooking with canola oil. You shouldn't be having anything that's deep fried. What you should be having is some olive oil. And again, you have to understand how much you're having. Okay, so even though it's a healthy fat, you still have to understand how much your body needs so you can give your body what it needs and no more. But olive oil is an excellent source of good fat. Olives are an excellent source. You have your avocados, excellent source. And avocado is actually something I have every morning with my sweet potato and whatever my protein source is. And avocado oil is also healthy. So those are just some of the healthy oils out there that you can consider. So, for example, if you are having egg, scrambled eggs for breakfast, then if you understand how much your body needs, then you can saute your egg or scramble your egg with a little bit of olive oil. That's okay. Or you can glaze your baked, sweet potato with some olive oil, or your squash with some olive oil. So don't fear fat. Fat is actually important. And why do I talk about these components? Fat, fiber, carbohydrates, and well, mainly protein, carbohydrates, fat, and fiber. Why do we talk about those? Because those are the things that are actually going to help your body regulate your blood sugar. That's the main thing it does. So if you're eating it in the right balance, you're giving your body what it needs, and and your plate is made up in a way that it has all of those things, then your blood sugar should respond. Okay. So nutrition, 80% of the process, understanding what you need. And most of the time, the women who I work with, when they come in, they've done the basics. I know you've probably done the basics. You've already cut sugar out, right? You don't add sugar to anything. You already drink just water. You don't drink soda. You don't drink juice. You've already cut out the white rice and the white bread. I know that because I can tell you so far 90% of the women who I work with, when they start with me, they have done those things a long time ago and they're still struggling. So it's really boils down to understanding what your body needs and in what balance to do it. And so if I was to look at the average size plate, then you want a quarter of your plate to be protein. You want a quarter of your plate to be a healthy, complex carbohydrate. You want half of your plate to be some kind of a vegetable, okay? And then you want your fats either incorporated into it, or you can have something that is a good fat on the side, like avocado. And in that entire meal, you should have fiber. So your vegetables should have fiber, your carbohydrates should have fiber as well. And sometimes your fat source will also have fiber, like avocados are very rich in fiber. So it's really about understanding nutrition and what you can eat. The questions that I get so often is, can I eat fruit? Fruit is good. Fruit is natural, but you have to again understand what fruits work with you for your blood sugar. Okay, not all fruits are acceptable until you finally achieve that goal of completely reversing insulin resistance. Until you achieve that goal of completely reversing insulin resistance, you actually should limit certain fruits until you actually achieve that goal of seeing normal blood sugars. So fruit is allowable. Berries are the best source of, fruit. They're high in fiber, rich in antioxidants, and they're low glycemic. So they're not going to spike your blood sugar as much. So that is, a question that I get all the time. And for those of you who are considering becoming vegetarians, as you can tell, I stress protein. And so, protein, animal sources are your best source of protein. So, if you are on that mission to reverse type 2 diabetes and you are on that final straw, you want to try this final thing and it's to become a vegetarian, I'm going to spare you that effort and I'm going to say, do not become a vegetarian simply to reverse type 2 diabetes, because you actually you can get yourself into even more trouble and make it more complicated to reverse type 2 diabetes. If you are already a vegetarian and you've been a vegetarian your whole life, or you're a vegetarian for other reasons, then what I would say is you definitely need that extra guidance. There's no doubt about it. You need that extra guidance because protein sources, as a vegetarian, protein sources can also be very high in carbohydrates. So you have to understand how to balance things, okay, how to balance things appropriately. So I definitely recommend getting some additional guidance and support if you are a vegetarian and you're battling type 2 diabetes. And so that is pretty much it for tonight. So, to summarize, the big pointers is eat. That's the first pointer. If you are skipping breakfast, if you are intermittent fasting and getting maybe one or two meals for the day, then stop doing that. And I will tell you that is one of the reasons you're feeling low energy. I mean, high blood sugars does that too, but that's one of the reasons you're feeling high energy. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons your blood sugar doesn't respond very well, because you're just putting yourself through more torture and more stress. And so your body responds by increasing the blood sugar as a result. So, eat is my first pointer. My second pointer is you're eating 3 meals a day. Make sure you are getting your protein. Every plate should have a protein. So, for example, if you're having avocado toast for breakfast, think what protein source you can add. You can add a layer of salmon on top of that. You can add a layer of egg on top of that. You can add a layer of tuna on top of that, but you definitely need to have a protein source in every meal that you eat. So that is a huge one. The third pointer that I have is assess the quality of your carbohydrates. If you are eating carbohydrates that are simple and just, the minute it hits your mouth, it's becoming glucose, then that's where you need to start. You need to start by cutting it out. Now, again, I know most of you have done that already, okay? But for those of you who are still eating white bread, or for those of you who are eating brown bread or wheat bread thinking it's healthier, then I'm going to tell you that's what you need to cut out. Look for high quality carbohydrates as natural as possible. So that would probably fall into your high carb vegetable category. Um, uh, and then finally, don't fear the fats, right? Fat is good. Fat is good if it's a good source. And your good sources is your olive oil, your avocado oil, your avocados, your olives, your seeds, your nuts. Those are good sources of fats. And then finally, are you getting your fiber in? Fiber is critical. 25 grams of fiber minimum for everyone across the board. Fiber is important. Are you getting enough fiber? Most people aren't. Most people are protein deficient, and most people are not getting enough fiber in their diet. And that pretty much sums it up. So with that, does anybody have any questions? Okay. So with that, I am going to close off for tonight, but there is opportunity if you are ready, if you are tired of trying on your own, if you're tired of, using Google and it's not working, if you are tired of, feeling alone on the journey and you want that extra help, you want that extra guidance, you want that accountability as well, because accountability is a huge part of that process as well, the process of naturally reversing type 2 diabetes, then I'm here for you. Just click the link in my bio. There's actually many um, uh, areas there that you can look at. I do have a free jumpstart kit that you can look at that helps you figure out where you fall. So you do a quiz, and then it gives you an idea of, what your nutrition looks like, and is it appropriate, and what steps you need to take to fix that. And it gives you a grocery list, so you have an idea of some of the things you should be eating. So you can grab that, and you can also grab that 15-minute discovery call. This is, the spots are very limited, so please save it for, for someone, for the people. This is really for the people who are ready to take action, who are looking for a feasible way. You're ready to take action. You're just looking for what's right for you. And so that is the opportunity that we have to introduce ourselves to each other and to figure out if we're a good fit, if we can work together. So the link is there. Go ahead and book your free discovery call. And just know, you don't have to live with type 2 diabetes. You really don't. You just have to take the steps to figure it out, to decode it finally, and once and for all. Okay. All right. With that, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.